People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Our episode today, we're going to cover a topic that involves critical thinking skills, and that is how to maintain an open mind. And in discussing having an open mind, we're going to talk about three specific areas. One is how to think positive before negative. The second area we're going to talk about is keep learning. And then the last area that we're going to talk about is continue to listen. So let me go ahead and kick off the think positive before negative. Sure. We've talked about this in previous episodes before, Craig, and our brains are pre-wired to protect us. And so when something new is brought to us, our brain starts to think, what are the bad things that will happen? So because our brain takes us into a survival mode. And that's why in many instances in an organization, when you're going through a brainstorming session, you're reviewing new ideas, you're talking about new things to do, there's a lot of negativity in the room and you permit it to happen. So what I always tell people is that what you need to consciously do this is to get people to start focusing on the positives, the benefits. You can rewire your hardwired brain. No matter how old you are, you can start to do that, but you have to, just like a habit, 21 straight days it becomes comfortable, another 21 straight days it becomes a habit. You've got to get through that cognitive bias that you have of thinking of new things as negative, because when you do that, your mind begins to open up and you start thinking about the possible alternatives.
Yeah, and one other area I think that's really helpful is you're doing a breakdown. We used to do breakdown meetings when things went wrong, right?
Right.
If a customer wasn't happy or process broke. But there is a great opportunity to think, all right, what are the pieces of the process that worked? Right? Because we've built processes thinking they would work. And there's a great opportunity, even when things go wrong, to your point of thinking positive, is what have we learned from it?
Yeah.
What can we build better so that we can better serve our customers, better meet the needs of our people? So it's really an important opportunity to say, what's working well, because there's always going to be problems. And I agree with you. When you start focusing on the problems, you end up thinking your whole process, everything you're doing is wrong. And that's not the meeting you want to walk out of. Find the ways to fix it. And I think having that kind of positive thinking of, all right, what did we do right and what can we do more of that way before we do the correct things?
Yeah, even when it comes to interpersonal relationships with people that you love and know and respect and everything. I'll use a perfect example. My two daughters, for their entire lives, I gave them daddy advice. And daddy advice was to protect them. No, you don't want to do this. You could get hurt. You could spend a whole lot of money and everything else. And it came to me that I was getting them to think negative about everything. Or in their mind, I was looking like I was always the negative one. And therefore, they shut down and they didn't seek any more advice. Think of it going to a meeting. It's very similar. If you can start thinking about the positive things, people will open up more. It's going to increase your collaboration because people will feel they're listening to me. And they'll start taking those new ideas and helping you to expand to the positives, okay? The second area we're going to talk about is keep learning. I can't stress enough, read when it comes to learning. Read books that you don't know anything about or subjects that you don't know anything about, because when you're reading, you're learning about something you don't know anything about or have a preformed, idea about it. Your mind opens up more and it doesn't get defensive to things. We tend to live right now in a society where we are very defensive to a lot of different things. And we seek that information that only agrees with what we believe to be true. And when it comes to learning, if you keep learning, things aren't static. What you'll find is that you're going to uncover and your mind's going to open up to potential new things that are out there or ways you can do things that are better. So I always like to say I'd love to have, one foot in the grave and still reading a new book about something I don't know about, learning something. And so in order to keep an open mind, we have to keep learning.
Well, for me, it's interesting, as you read the studies of how few people actually read books anymore, just in general, even fiction books, and one of the areas where I find a lot of interesting books to read is through a lot of podcasts I listen to, because a lot of podcasts are interviewing people who are promoting their book, and it's that idea, and I've been able to pull things through that of just seeing different ways to run the business, different ways to, manage people, and there's a lot of learning opportunities that you can gain. So that constant progression of learning. And when you think about all the different opportunities, it used to be, all right, well, I'll read, Harvard Business Review and I'll read a book. But now, between podcasts, what we're doing here with the vlog, and then things like Masterclass and all these different, there's so many learning opportunities through LinkedIn and all these different things you can do. And not even that, just to look at all the small opportunities locally to learn. There was just a great one that a friend of mine did on, how to build up your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
So there's great opportunities to learn and kind of grow your career, because if, you don't want to just keep doing the same thing, trying to find some new ways. You may be doing really well, but, there's that, what got you here won't get you there.
Right.
And you need to be ready to be able to pivot, and you need to see the different opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it goes back to having an open mind. If you're constantly learning, you're going to have an open mind. If you're not learning and you're just continuing to do what you're doing, you're going to plow down that same road with the same thoughts and beliefs that you had at the very beginning. And the last area we're going to talk about is listen. In Stephen Covey's book on 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of his habits was to seek first understand, then to be understood. I always like to say, listen more than you talk. And I think we've covered this one or two other times in previous episodes, but I think it is so important that we take the time to listen to other people. The data that they have, the information, the insight, the perspective that they have that is different from ours. Keep our mouths shut, listen to what they have to say. In the end, you may not agree with it, but at least you've taken the opportunity to open up your mind and process that new information.
Yeah, I think it's important when this kind of gets into the idea of active listening and some of the things we've even talked about coaching employees, right? A lot of this all starts to tie together. Is, rather than working on your response halfway through their statement, sit back, let them finish their thought, and stay focused on it. And, it's even worse today, right? How many of us are sitting in meetings where people are explaining and everybody in there is on their phone or on, and I'm as guilty sometimes of that as others. But, there's a lot of distractions that stop you from being able to listen. When I'm coaching, I have a chair that is away from everything. So it's just me in the chair, so I can be 100% focused on my coachee. Yeah. And so it's an important thing to do. And there's so many more distractions than ever that stop you from listening and being focused. So it's really important to be, intentional about how you're listening to what's going on.
Yeah. And as I always like to tell people is if you listen, you're going to hear new things. If you talk, you're only hearing what you already know. And that mind just closes up. And so listening is just so important. In fact, people compliment other people by going, oh, Craig's a good listener. Yeah. And people pick up on that you listen. So if you want to open up your mind, listen to what other people think, feel, and believe. So key takeaways. Craig, tell me, what did we learn?
One, it looks like we have some new opportunities, one on a parenting podcast and one on some sort of commentary on society that apparently we're going to get kicked off here pretty soon. But, seriously, this idea of keeping an open mind is, you get trapped, and I saw it a lot of times in business where, if you think it's always this, right? And it's an interesting story about, some salespeople. Salespeople are really good when they're new.
Right.
Because they don't know all the answers.
They're learning.
So they have to live and they're learning, right? So, and then over time they become less effective because they're jumping ahead of the conversation. They're getting ahead of the customer because they think, oh, well, they're this. And so it's really kind of comes back to that listening and being open-minded to say this may be a different situation. It may end up being the same solution, but the reason they want to buy is different. Right. So I think it's really important to kind of keep that, keep yourself in that state of newness.
Yeah. And being open-minded it's difficult. Whenever I open up a critical thinking seminar or keynote speech and everything, I always tell people that I teach you a lot of different processes: SWOT analysis, fishbone diagrams, distinction analysis, deviation analysis. But each of those processes adheres to the old adage: garbage in, garbage out. And if you are closing off because you are only bringing into those critical thinking processes what you already believe to be true, your results are not going to be as effective or as good as they should be because you didn't take into consideration other people's comments, new information that's coming in because you've shut it off. And it's not a political conversation, but it's become easy lately. I mean, you can immediately turn to someone if they tell you something you don't like or information they give you that you disagree with. You can go, oh, that's fake news. Those are alternative facts. We quickly dismiss information we disagree with. And now it's almost like we have the right and the ability to do so. And again, going to an open mind, it's like a parachute. Only works if it's open. So with that, Clay, take us home.
With that sage advice, we will close out today. So, if you know somebody who needs to have a more open mind, please share this with them. Like our videos. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, on Facebook. You can also subscribe to our feed over on QAleadership.com. Also, if it's hard for you to watch these, but you got a lot of car time, we're available in podcast form on all the popular podcast platforms. Just search for Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. So until next time, I'm Craig Anderson.
And I'm Lou Quinto.